My name is Jamin Gerker. I'm your first friend in Alaska, and I am an associate real estate broker. And today I'm here to give you the market update for what's going on in Eagle River, Alaska. As I've said many times before, Eagle River is kind of a small but mighty market here in the south central area. And we're going to be talking about why that is. We'll be looking at the single-family homes, the condo, and the multifamily market. Before we get started, though, do make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff because it really does help the channel. And also, I couldn't help but notice about 3/4 of those of you out there watching the channel are not actually subscribed to it, so please go ahead and do that. That would help out tremendously. Now, let's go and get into today's market update. So the first thing that we're going to look at is what's going on in the single-family market. And the first thing we want to know here is how many properties are actually available. Well, we know that this time last year there was about 44, and this year there's 36. So slight decrease for the amount of inventory that's available. Looking across the board, yeah, it's really kind of all over the place, honestly. Like in the summertime, we had significantly more inventory available than we did before, and that kind of drew back a little bit as we got into the fourth quarter. But as of right now, we're remaining about where we were before or coming down slightly. The next thing we want to know is how many properties have actually sold in Eagle River for the single family category. So we see that this time last year, there were 25, and this year, 29 for the month of December. Now, the good thing about the market updates in January is we do have all of the data from the entire previous year, and that's all good to go. So let's take a look here. We see the number of total properties that have sold in Eagle River for 2024 was about 449, and the year before 413. So we see that even though the inventory more or less has kind of stayed the same, the number of properties that are selling has increased slightly, not a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but it has gone up. Now, looking prior to COVID, though, normally we would see about 460 to about 480. So more or less, we're returning back to where we were as far as the number of properties that are actually selling. Let me actually take a look real quick and see what's normal for the inventory. Yeah, normally around this time of year, just looking at December as an example, we'd expect to see somewhere around 110, 120, and now we're seeing 36. So you see by how much the inventory has been cut in Eagle River, and yet the number of sold properties has kind of kept pace with what we had in previous years when we had a lot more inventory. So this is indicative for the amount of demand we have for homes in Eagle River. Now, another really good thing about this time of year is we do have data as to what happened for the entire year in question. So now we're going to look at the average sold price. So the average sold price went from about $496,000 to about $500,000 even for average sold price, which means it's increased by 0.8% over the year before. Now, that's not that big of an increase, and I've got some theories as to why that is, because on the ground, like homes that are coming on in Eagle River, they usually don't last very long, and usually they're going to be going for much more than they would have gotten a couple of years before. So there is a healthy appreciation, but why is that not being reflected in the average sold price? Well, one of my theories is what homes are being put on the market. You know, in the years past, when low interest rates weren't really in play, that, you know, everyone purchased like, 2-3 years ago or 4 or 5 years ago, we see that people would buy and then they would sell. And we had a really good, kind of in and move them in, move them out, kind of an industry in Eagle River with all the military folks that are coming in and then moving out. Because the interest rates being so low, that has really thrown a monkey wrench into the entire equation here. So normally people would be willing to sell. They're not willing to sell a property with a 2.5% interest rate anymore. And so we're seeing a lot of homes that normally would have gone onto the market just being held onto now and just being rented out instead of being sold. And is that going to continue into the future? I couldn't say for sure. I would expect that's probably going to be what we see moving forward. So the properties that are coming onto the market, any number of reasons can be attributed as to why they're coming onto the market. But I suspect the shortage that we're seeing is probably more to do with the fact that people are sitting on homes with low interest rates and they're just not wanting to move anywhere in the near future. The next thing I want to talk about is what's going on in the condo market in Eagle River. Now, Condo market has never particularly been that big in Eagle River, but it is something that is continuing to grow, and as the Eagle River itself develops, we are going to see more and more condos popping up. So we're going to focus on it, but not big numbers here. So what we see is that this time last year, there were 9 condos available on the market. This year, 12. So proportionally big increase, not big numbers in the grand scheme of things. Next thing we see is that this time last year, the number of condos that actually sold went from 3 for the month of December to 2 for the month of December this year in 2024. And also we see that for the entire year of 2024, there were 64 condos that sold in Eagle River. And the year before, it was 50. And if we look prior to COVID, we see about 80 to about 70 condos selling for the entire year is kind of being the average. So more or less, we're getting back to kind of what the normal rate of sales are, even though we do see significantly smaller inventory. Because I said there were 12 condos available on the market. Yes, normally we would see about 30, 32 available on the market prior to COVID. So we are, in fact, seeing continued demand. We're just not seeing as much available for people who are interested. Now, looking at the average sold price, we see that this time last year, about $296,000 was the average. And now we're seeing the average sold price is about $319,000, which means the average sold price has increased by about 8% compared to the year before. Now, this is more what I would expect to see in the single-family properties. We've already discussed one of my theories as to why we're only seeing a 1% as opposed to something closer to like 8%, like what we're seeing for condos. Historically, though, condos in Eagle River have not been something, it's either been really hit or miss kind of a thing. And really that can be attributed to the sample size just being so small. Because keeping in mind, we're talking only about 50, 60 condos that we're evaluating here. And usually if we're looking at somewhere like, I don't know, Anchorage, we're talking like a couple hundred. So once we get a smaller sample size like this, having a new subdivision or a new association come online that's kind of newer can throw the numbers off. But with that being the case, if you own a condo in Eagle River, I do suspect it's gone up, in the previous year. I'm not sure if it necessarily 8% would be an accurate assessment for how much everyone's values have gone up, because I suspect we've got some new condos that are just naturally going to be priced higher. So I say all that to say, take it with a grain of salt. Let me know if you have questions on your specific unit. Let's take a break here real quick. For those of you who have been watching for a little bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where I interview people who've recently moved up here to Alaska about what it's like living up here, and you get to hear from these recent transplants yourself as to whether or not, what their experiences are, what they like, what they don't like, and let you make the decision for yourself as to whether or not this is going to be a good move for you to make up here. And also, for those of you who are considering moving up here, I do have a relocation guide. So if that's something that would benefit you, do make sure you go to my website down below in the description section, register to my website, and make sure you put relocation guide in the little comment section so I know what to send you. Now, let's go and finish up today's market update, looking at the multifamily market. Now, looking at the multifamily market, we see that this time last year, there were 2 multifamily properties that were available. For December of 24, we see that there were 6. So proportionally, pretty big jump. Looking historically, though, that's more or less kind of what we would expect to see about this time of year. It'd be closer to 8, but that's pretty close. We're going to say it's in the same ballpark. Not a whole lot to report as far as the units sold go, just because there's just been so little inventory available for multifamily properties in Eagle River, just because once you've got a multifamily property here, you probably don't want to let it go. So we're not seeing a whole lot available there, but for the month of December, we saw 1 this year and none for the previous year. And looking at the total number for the entire year, we see that 4 total sold in 23, and for the year 2024, 18 sold. So we do see a nice increase for the number of multifamily properties selling in Eagle River, which is a promising sign if you are an investor, because it's not a whole lot of options the past couple of years. So you've been wanting to invest here because of the lower cap rate and a lot of other benefits as well. It's been kind of frustrating, but it does look like there's some more options coming online. Now, looking historically, we're actually seeing that about 10 or 12 was kind of the kind of the par of what we would expect for multifamily properties in Eagle River. So the fact that we're back at 18 does show that there continues to be a lot of demand, even though inventory, it's not quite where it was before. It's about where it was before. But that's a significant uptick proportionally for how many units we sold before. Now, I'm going to explain to you why this next graph is the way it is. Okay, so we see for the average sold price for multifamily properties, it went from approximately $430,000 for the year to date for the entire year of 23 to approximately $1 million for the average sold price this year. Now, before everyone gets too excited, let's just keep in mind averages are not particularly accurate, especially when we have such a small sample size that we've been talking about before. 18 properties is really nothing. And also keep in mind, we sold a $4.9 million property earlier this summer. So there's really going to be throwing all the numbers off just with that. Now, I will say I have seen properties for multifamily properties really appreciate pretty aggressively. Like I've got some multifamily properties that sold recently right next to me, actually. And I was pleasantly surprised, actually, as to what they actually sold for. So there is a good appreciation for multifamily properties here in Eagle River. I don't think it's 130% though. That's a little out there, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was somewhere around like 5 or 6%. Could be completely off, but that's wouldn't be something that would surprise me. Now, in summary for everyone, if you are a buyer and you're looking at this market, good news is we're starting to see some more options. And, it looks like it kind of dipped around that fourth quarter. Not a huge surprise. Really, the numbers that we're looking at is really going to be in the spring and the summertime, which those really did shoot up during the previous year. So hopefully that trend continues. If you're wondering what to do with interest rates and everything, I'm not a loan officer, but I can tell you, if you purchase something now, that does give you the ability to, number one, lock in that rate. So if the rates go up later, you don't really have to worry about, having to deal with a higher rate. And if they go down drastically and it makes sense for you to refinance, you can go ahead and refinance, and you're not going to have to deal with the hordes of people you're going to be dealing with who also want to go buy a house if you haven't purchased yet and you think, oh, this is it. This is where we can go jump in and get ourselves a deal, because you're not the only person thinking that. That's the one thing a lot of people don't really factor in when they're trying to decide if they want to wait for the interest rates to come down is, hey, once you decide to pull the trigger, a lot of other people have probably decided to do that too if you waited for the rates to come down. And now any savings you might have got probably going out the window, because now you're having to pay more, you're having to waive inspections and pay a bunch of extra on other stuff just because there were 10 other people who made offers on the same house. So that's the power of not having to deal with competition. For sellers, this isn't the market we had in 2020. For some of you, that's actually a relief, because it could be a little stressful as a seller when you had 10 offers coming in on the house on the very first day, and that could definitely be overwhelming. And if you are wanting to sell in the near future, feel free to give me a call. Let's talk a little bit and see how best I can help you. The big thing is, like I said, just manage expectations. Just because your neighbor's property had all this crazy stuff happen doesn't necessarily mean that's also going to be our experience, because it's a completely different market now compared to especially around the COVID times. It's a completely different market, but we can definitely make it happen and get you down the road if that's something that you're wanting to do. For investors, as always, just make sure your numbers actually do balance out, and also make sure you are socking money away and having a big savings account for the inevitable big disaster that's going to befall your property. For instance, I just right now, as we speak, have contractors over at my house because there was a leak going on behind the wall. It was a slow drip for about a year at this point. No one really could have detected it. I got lucky and just opened up the boiler room one day and just noticed some water like along the wall. Called them up, and I don't know how much it's going to be, but I'm pretty happy I've got that account just set up. Had I just been taking all that rental income and just been pocketing it and being like, oh, great, I've got, X amount of dollars extra every month, and plan a trip to Hawaii with that money instead of saving it, I would be in big trouble. So yeah, be a good operator, I guess is what I'm saying. But yeah, this has been your market update. If you have any other questions, reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help, and we'll see you next time.